Hey there, welcome back to Cisco Reads Books. Today we're reviewing a military thriller Thursday for you, and it is Dale Brown's Dreamland Nerve Center. This one's fantastic. This one directly correlates to the story that happened in Day of the Cheetah for Patrick McClanahan series. Antares is back. So I'll read you the back of the book and we'll see what you think. Dale Brown's Dreamland Nerve Center. Hidden in the Nevada desert is America's most advanced aerospace weapons testing facility. Dreamland is the place where the nation's top minds come to develop artillery and aircraft that push beyond the cutting edge, and where the Air Force's top guns come to test them, on the front lines of this new era in warfare. As politicians push for more budget cuts, Colonel Dog Bastian must do what he can to salvage a key experimental program known as Antares, a method of merging electronic data with a pilot's natural senses. In need of quick results, a test pilot is hooked into the system, a system that allows him to operate several planes at once, directly from his brain. But when he can no longer distinguish reality from computer-induced delusions, Dreamland's worst nightmare comes to life. So yeah, as I said, this is following semi-close to the events of Day of the Cheetah, where they had the first, hiccup, really bad hiccup with Antares. Well, this time they're not going to do much better. It's basically the same person that ran the first set of experiments on Antares in Day of the Cheetah. Well, she's back, and she's doing her mad scientist bullshit with Kevin Madrone, who is a test pilot at Dreamland, one of the good friends of one of our main characters, Zen Stockard, which is basically Colonel Bastian's son-in-law. And throughout this book, that Kevin Madrone is thrown into the program again. They've revamped it. They're using basically his mind to control multiple drones that are dropped from an aircraft in order to, similar to the Loyal Wingman system. The tests don't go as planned, obviously. He ends up H-jacking a plane and flying to South America, basically starting a coup over there. He gets involved with with a Latina chick that's a general of the Air Force over in the fictional country that we're dealing with, and shit goes downhill. But he also wants revenge on Zen Stockard for some imaginary thing that's going on. Meanwhile, Zen Stockard is still kind of coming to grips with the fact that he's a paraplegic at this point, and is going through some personal stuff with his wife, Brianna Stockard. And meanwhile, Tecumseh Bastian, Dog, is just trying to keep everything together. The government's ready to shut this program down, shut Dreamland down. So he needs a win. And throughout the course of this book, we see that the Flight Hawk program, which is the one that Zen Stockard eventually will, takes over, or has taken over since the first book, we see that come to fruition with the testing of Antares with the Flight Hawk system, which, obviously has repercussions. But yeah, this book is a great second installment in the Dreamland series, and it does happen this one happens basically before Fatal Terrain. And yeah, Dreamland Nerve Center, it was one of the most exciting books that I had read from Dale Brown at the time. As you get farther into the series, they get more and more crazy as you go. And having read this one before I read Day of the Cheetah in the Patrick McClanahan series, it was a little confusing just because they were referencing a lot of stuff that happened in Day of the Cheetah. That if you haven't read the Patrick McClanahan series, you do feel like there's definitely something and some events that you're missing. But Dale Brown does a good job of explaining, if you're new to the series or if you haven't read Patrick McClanahan series, he does explain a bit of it. But having read Dave the Cheetah now and rereading Nerve Center, man, it's so much better of a story just knowing the background behind everything. So I mean, I really do recommend, like, read the Patrick McClanahan series up until Dreamland, and the Patrick McClanahan series kind of coincide timeline wise, story time, and then just bounce back and forth with whatever the continuity is. In fact, forget that. I'm going to come up with a list that has, if you want to read it in true, like, chronological order, I'm going to come up with a list and I'll post it on the YouTube channel so that y'all can see the chronological order of both the Patrick McClanahan series and the Dreamland books, if that's something that you're interested in. But that's how I think it should be read. I mean, these books were meant to be read because like the big gaps in publishing, in traditional publishing, there would be a Patrick McClanahan book and then there would be a Dreamland book that came out, and it was meant so that you could read, you know, the newest release of Patrick McClanahan, flip over, read the newest release from Dreamland, and still be in continuity. So yeah, it's the way to read it, honestly, because the two storylines, Dreamland and Patrick McClanahan, intersect so much that, like, if you do read one and then go back to the other, I mean, it'll still be a good experience, but there will be events that you're like, oh, when did that happen? And you just, you know, the chronological way to read them is probably the best, and that's what I'm doing now, and it is phenomenal. So yeah, if you like that, and if you want that list, please let me know. I mean, I'm going to make it anyway, but I'll post it on the YouTube channel, and that way y'all can read, you know, the timeline from start to beginning, or start to beginning. I mean, start to end. But yeah, this was a fantastic book. It is, I would say it's one of my top 5 Dreamland books out of the 16. But I mean, there's definitely some that are better and there's some that are, you know, not as good. But this book is fantastic. And this, as a second book, was, in my mind, it was better than the first book, just because we got to know the characters so much better. And you really see Dog come into his own, where he just doesn't give a fuck about higher ups or whatever. He, like I said, he's the most badass commander that I've read in military thriller fiction. So yeah, I mean, he's one of those characters where it's just he carries the series, which will lead to complaints later in the series. But as of right now, after the drought, I'm going to start the Sniper Elite, which is our next military thriller. So next week, you may not get a Dale Brown military thriller Thursday. You very well might get Sniper Elite by Scott McEwen coming in there for a review to kind of, you know, break it up, the Dale Brown awesomeness. But hopefully it's with another awesome military thriller title. That's all we can hope for. So, as always, thank you for joining me on Military Thriller Thursday. And until next time, read, because reading is fundamental.